Right, welcome to everyone that is either joined us on the Zoom meeting or watching on YouTube. I hope you're going to get some great value from this masterclass. Phil will be joining me in a second. He's just brushing his hair and getting all those things finished off. So just a little bit of things to let you know about. Firstly, that obviously we're here to show you how you can create a visual business plan, ditch the business plan as such, and create a visual representation of your business. We'll also be showing you how you can work with us in 2023, how that might work at the end. So stick around for that. If you're in the Zoom meeting, then feel free to leave comments or questions in the comments, and we will get back to you at the end and answer those. And a little bit of Zoom etiquette, if you can keep yourself on mute to save you interrupting as such, because we've got quite a lot to get through, so we're going to make it fairly fast paced and high on content. And yes, as I mentioned, put any comments and any questions you have in the chat. And if you're watching on YouTube, use the comments for some comments and any questions that you have. So without further ado, I'm going to get Phil to join us. Hi, Phil. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm fine, thanks.
Good stuff.
Good to be here. Hi, everyone.
So we are going to split this up into 4 sections. Phil's going to do the first section, introduce the concept of the... I'm going to let him introduce what he's going to talk about, actually. There's 4 steps. Phil's going to come on first. I'm going to then talk about motivation for a little while. Then Phil's going to come back and do a little bit more detail around the concept that we're introducing here. And then finally, I'm going to do how you can work with us bit at the end. So that's basically how we've split it all up. So without further ado, Phil, if you're ready to go, I'll hand over the baton to you.
Yes. Okay, so welcome everyone. So today we're going to be looking at whether we can ditch the business plan, and we'll see whether that's something that you like the idea of as we go through. So first of all, I want to introduce you to someone called Emma, who lost her job in the school canteen due to COVID. And when she lost her job, she didn't just lose her job and her income; she kind of lost her identity and her friends, her social life, and everything as well.
Phil, just got a slight issue with the sound at the moment, so we're just going to. If you want to go back to the start of your presentation, we'll come back to it in a second. Let me just fix it this end. We will do that hopefully fairly swiftly. I think that should
What
sort
was the
it.
problem? People couldn't hear me.
They couldn't hear you, no. Can hear you now. And have you gone back to the start of your presentation? Have you got back to your first slide? If that's just before we go back to that.
Okay, so hi everyone again. We're going to look at whether we can ditch a detailed business plan in favour of something a little more visual and easy to understand and easy to communicate. So we're going to start with looking at someone called Emma, who was made redundant from her job in the school canteen after 25 years due to COVID. She lost her job, but also she kind of lost her identity and she lost her way as a result of that. She lost her social life and didn't really know what to do with herself. But she did know that she loved being outdoors and she loves dogs, and her dog, Bella in particular. And whilst out walking one day, she came up with the idea that maybe she could perhaps start a small business as a dog walker, as a professional dog walker. But then she started, as we all do, to have doubts, self-doubt, and I don't know anything about business, I can't do this and all the rest of it. But she spoke to a friend who said, look, Emma, there are loads of people out there that can help you. You might want to go to a local organisation. And so she did. She got online and she found an organisation, and this is from their actual webpage, that says if you're thinking of starting a business, then you need a business plan. And tell you what, all you've got to do is download your business plan here, and then you can call Wayne to discuss it. So she did, and this is what she found, and her heart sank. So basically, as she read through operational structures, SWOT analysis, What kind of financial record keeping are you intending to use? What about legal and regulatory requirements? He even asked her for an accountant's address. And of course, all this did was to confirm all of her doubts that there's no way that she can run her own business. She has no idea what she's doing. She doesn't understand any of this at all. And we have to question whether this is actually the best way to help people who are thinking of starting a business, or even people who are already in business. We wouldn't, for instance, you wouldn't attempt to do a jigsaw until you had an idea what it's going to look like at the end. It would be virtually impossible. We use maps to help us get around, but the maps have to be relevant, and the detail provided has to be relevant to what we're doing. So this is a map of Sale, where I live in Greater Manchester, and it's very useful if you want to get around Sale. But if you want to get to Sale, it's of no use to you whatsoever, because it's providing you with a level of detail. It's zoomed in to a level that is not useful to you. And if you want to know how to get to Sale, you need to take a bigger picture view by zooming out. And if you want to get to Sale from a long way away, you need an atlas view rather than a street view. Likewise, if you want to get around the London Underground, the original map is of limited use to you, because if you look carefully at this, you can see stations and lines, but you have to look really carefully because it's interwoven on a whole load of irrelevant detail that's irrelevant to you when you're in the London Underground. It was then modified to something like this. But even that is providing you with more detail than you need, until someone called Harry Beck came along and provided us with what we now know as the map of the London Underground, which is a system-wide view. It gives you the big picture and provides you only with what you need to know in order to understand the system, which is the London Underground, where the stations are, on which lines, and which ones you can use to get around. And it doesn't provide you with any above ground level detail at all, because it's not relevant, apart from the river, and that's just to show you that if you go south of the river, you'll never be able to get a cab home again. But there are lots of other examples in life where pictures and more visual representation, or a system-wide view, helps us understand the bigger picture. You couldn't even trying to imagine building even a simple bookcase from IKEA using words only would be extremely difficult. And yet that's what we are attempting to do with business plans. We are attempting to describe and understand our entire business in a very linear, wordy way, when that's just not how businesses work. So if you look at, here's an example of one I found on the internet a couple of weeks ago. And if you look at it, I'm looking at this and my eyes are already glazing over. And this is just the executive summary, right? And these are the instructions about how to complete that business plan. This is the essential guide to business planning. And again, I'm already looking at this and I'm losing the will to live. And you can imagine someone like Emma looking at this, who I forgot to tell you was also dyslexic. So she's looking at this and she really is being put off the idea of running her own business. But it doesn't have to be like this. Very clever people like Albert Einstein have said something along the lines of, if you can't explain it simply, then you don't understand it well enough. And the key here is about understanding. You can't communicate something, and you can't pivot or change something unless you fully understand how it works and how all the component bits are put together. And this is not someone I like to talk about too much, but something arrived in my LinkedIn feed this morning rather presciently. His 6 rules for productivity, and number 4 is be clear, not clever. Don't use nonsense words and technical jargon, but to choose words that are concise, to the point, and most importantly, easy to understand. And rather than sounding smart, be efficient. And that's what we need here when we're trying to understand and communicate our business and to pivot around ideas in our business. We need more of a systems thinking approach. And a business plan doesn't allow us to do that, because it necessitates that we think about our business in linear terms and focus in on one thing only, without being able to see the bigger picture as we do it. That's just not how businesses work, and it's not how our brains work. So this guy came along and he had a similar opinion, and whilst he's doing his PhD, Alex, along with his supervisor, wrote a book and published it afterwards called Business Model Generation, in which they introduced us to the business model canvas, which was a way of depicting a business in 9 simple building blocks. But don't be put off by its apparent simplicity. It provides insights into how things work and the interconnectivity and interrelationships of the various components of a business. But in 9 blocks, it allows you to describe and communicate very, very easily to anyone, not just people who've got MBAs and business degrees, how your business works. So 9 blocks, and we can think about it in 3 main sections. The first being the right-hand side, or the front of stage. This is the customer-facing side, the customer, where the customer has touch points with your business. Number 1 is, well, who is the customer, or who is your market? Who are you trying to help? Number 2 is your value proposition. What is it? How is it you're going to help them? How are you going to improve their lives or improve their business? Number 3 is how these two things get connected. How do they know about you? How do they evaluate what you have to offer? How do they buy from you, and how do you deliver to them? Number 4 is what kind of relationship are you intending to have with them afterwards? Are you going to be, is it personal service? Is it entirely automated, or some kind of hybrid? And number 5, of course, is what are they going to give you back that's going to make all of your efforts worthwhile? On the left-hand side, we can think about how we create this value with what you have and what you do. So key resources, or your assets, are what you have to start with. Now, if you are running your own business as a solopreneur, or just with a couple of colleagues, then your key resources are largely going to be you, your experience, your qualifications, your skills and abilities, and of course your amazing dynamic personality. But larger businesses might have things like intellectual property, plant and machinery, or platforms, or whatever it is that makes a key resource for them to be able to create value for customers. Key activities are what you do with these resources. How do you work with these resources to create value? And key partners, who helps you do this, either with activities or giving you more key resources. And these 3 blocks effectively make up the cost structure of your business. And then you can think about these 2 blocks on the bottom kind of separately, because this is the sustainability of your organization. And in order for it to be sustainable in the long run, then basically your revenue streams must at least match your cost structure. It might be that for the first few years you can get away with making a loss, but overall you'll need to at least balance the books here. And even if you're a not-for-profit, you still can't, in the long term, spend more than you are making, either in donations or directly from customers. And that's it, really. That's as complicated as you need to get in order to fully understand a business. And when we come back after Mark's section on motivation, we'll come back and look at how we can use this in terms of explaining existing businesses and how they work. Even large corporations can be explained very simply using this model. Now, the center of this canvas is value proposition, and this basically is what the business model canvas allows you to do, to take all of the components of your business, all the various facets that you have to do, and all the various things that make up a business, and concentrate them into the concept of value, right? The value that you give to your customers, and remember, it's got to be something that they value rather than something that you value, how you create and deliver this value, and of course the value that you get back from them. And that is literally as complicated as you need to get in order to explain the business, because all business, all organizations, all teams, business units, all have to function basically in the idea of creating value for someone else and capturing value in return. Which is why Alex Osterwalder was quoted as saying that a business plan is the enemy of innovation. Not just not helpful, but actually harmful, because as we said, it requires you to think in a linear fashion, focusing on words and details that may not be relevant. For instance, if you're thinking of starting a business, or if you're forming a new product or service, of what relevance is what kind of financial record keeping you're going to use is to that business. It's not at all. It's not really going to. It's not a fundamental key component of your business, even though it might be important later on. So we'll come back to this concept and use the business model canvas to look at some real examples and how you might use it in your own businesses to either plan new products or to change in the face of catastrophic events like COVID, for instance. But for now, we're going to talk about motivation, which is why you're in business in the first place. So back to Mark.
Fabulous. Thank you, Phil. Hopefully that's whetted your appetite. And just a bit of background of why Phil and I are doing this together. We are part of a a group, Trainer Talk, and I saw Phil talking about this stuff a few months ago, and I suddenly thought, actually, motivation maps, what I do, fits in so well with this. We must get together and have a chat, and hence we are here today talking about how what Phil does and what I do will help you to really nail down what your business is all about. So it's over to me now then. So I'm going to talk about motivation and the importance of that. So let me to move that to there. So motivation, why is it important? Well, it's not the only thing that's important. There are three things that are actually important when it comes to a business. So firstly, you've got to think about the direction that you're heading, and that Phil's already mentioned about the problem you solve. So that could be your focus about what problem you solve, or think about the people that you want to serve. So ideally, we need to start with a direction firstly. Secondly, we need to think about the skills, knowledge, and all those things that we need to deliver what it is that we want to deliver to our customers and or our clients with regards to solving that problem. The third element, not surprisingly, is motivation, and quite often that element is not taken into consideration. But essentially what we're talking about here are the three elements, being the what, the how, and the why. So what we do is obviously key. That's what we deliver to our client, the problem we solve. How we do it is the skills and knowledge and know-how and experience that we have to allow us to do that. But the why is about why we're doing it in the first place. Why are we different? Why are we bothering? What's in it for us? What's in it for our customers? And so motivation is key to understanding yourself, understanding what's going to keep you getting out of bed in the morning, especially when times are tough. That's the thing. We can always, when things are going well, everything's fine, isn't it? We can get up and carry on. But when things get a bit tough, it's our motivation which will keep us going and give us the energy that we need. And essentially that's what we're talking about. Motivation is energy, the energy that we need to sustain ourselves and allow us to perform at our best. And if we're not paying enough attention to it, then we probably are, we will start to burn out and have problems that are associated with low energy. So they're the three elements that are important. So there are 9 reasons why we go to work. And another connection here is that Phil's just talked about the 9 building blocks of a business. I'm going to talk about the 9 motivations to work. So I didn't think about that until this moment, but I suddenly realised 9's a theme here. So 9 reasons why we go to work. This is the motivational map model. We'll just quickly go through this because we haven't got a great deal of time and we don't want to dwell too much on the detail here. But essentially, these are the 9 motivations that we all have, and I'll run through them quickly. Firstly, there's the defender motivator, which is about security, stability. Then we have the friend, which is about belonging. Then we have the star, which is about recognition from others. And they're the 3 relationship motivators. Then we have the 3 achievement motivators. The director, that's the drive for responsibility and control of people and resources. Then we have the builder, which is the money drive, material satisfaction. And then we have the expert drive, which is about knowledge, expertise. And so they're the 3 achievement motivators. And then we have the 3 growth motivators. We have the creator, which is the drive for innovation and creativity. Then we have the spirit, which is the freedom drive for an autonomy. And then last, but by no means least, the searcher motivator, which is about making a difference and doing something worthwhile and purposeful. So they're the 9 motivators, and essentially, as I said, what we need to do is put these in order for all of us and understand which ones are most important to us. So here's an example of a graph which comes from a motivational map, most important on the left and least important on the right. And so when we know this, we can then use this information with regards to setting up our business that will motivate us long term. We can all work just with our skills and knowledge and get stuff done. But ultimately, if we're going to perform our best, we're going to make sure that we're not only just have the skills to do what we are setting up and the business that we're running, but we also need to have the will, the motivation to keep to do what we're doing. So you see in this example that this person, the most important motivator for this person is the searcher. So they want to do something meaningful and purposeful. The least important is the star, which is about recognition. And if this was a business owner, I would be asking them questions about their marketing. Are they doing it? What sort of marketing are they doing? So when we come to think about and link to what Phil's explained to us about the 9 building blocks, is that there will be parts of that building block, or those 9 blocks, which we're comfortable with and we do without too much thought. Others will be more challenging. So in this instance, it might be the marketing and the channels that are chosen, which might be the most difficult part for this person. So this is how we can use this information and link it to the business model canvas, which Phil has always talked about. So the key here is making sure that we are doing most of the time we are spending doing things that are motivating us, and spending the least amount of time doing the things that don't motivate us. So just to link this to my own story, when I was running my retail business, which I did for 30 years, many of those years I was fairly motivated, and towards the end I wasn't motivated at all, because I was spending most of my time doing the things that didn't motivate me. So as a matter of interest, my lowest motivator, and has always been since I've been using motivational maps, and when I did motivational maps before I wasn't actually using them in my business, has always been director. So the thing I least want to do is to manage people and be responsible for people and resources. So when I was spending most of my time doing that, ultimately my energy levels dropped, motivational levels dropped, and ultimately I wasn't performing my best. And to be honest, I was trying to spend as least amount of time in my business as possible, really. The golf course was a much better place to be. So we don't want that. We want to help you create a business that will sustain you long term, motivate you, and also that's easy to run by having a plan, which isn't a text-based plan. It's going to be a visual thing that you can look at and update easily as your business develops. So that's my little piece on motivation. So I'm going to hand back to, we're going to come back, bring Phil back on in a second. Have you got anything to add of what I've just talked about with motivation and what you do, Phil?
Yes, indeed. Because I did a motivational map with you a few months back, and it did come back rather spookily accurate. And it clearly showed me that I am least motivated by details and playing it safe. I'm a visual thinker, a big picture thinker, and not interested in minor details, which corresponds exactly with kind of what I'm talking about today, and more of a risk taker, not wanting to play it safe, looking to always change things, which is one of the ways in which the business model canvas, for instance, is really useful. Is where you need to change things, and to do it in a big picture way.
Yeah.
So yes, and for the people, if you have identified your least important motivator, if it happens to be marketing, then those are the things that in your own business that you might want to consider outsourcing to other people, as opposed to struggling on and doing it yourself, and leave yourself free, leave yourself with the time and the freedom to do what it is that you're really good at, and let other people figure out the things that you either don't like or are no good at or just don't want to do.
Yeah, and I think the other important thing to remember also is that the business model canvas is easy to update, and with motivations change as you go through your business and go through your career. So again, you need something that's adaptable to change, and both models actually embrace change, realizing that as human beings we are changing and adapting around what the things we want and our environment and all those things that are happening. Good stuff. So we're almost halfway through. Just to, there's a few people joined the Zoom meeting after we'd started. So just to reiterate, if you have any comments or questions, please put them in the chat in the Zoom meeting. And if you are on the YouTube link, then again, use the comments for any comments or any questions that you want us to answer at the end. Okay, so all seems to be going swimmingly so far. So Phil, are you okay to do your second bit?
Yep, sure.
Okay, over to you then.
Okay, so welcome back. What we're going to look at now is, unfortunately, we don't have time to look at all 9 building blocks in more detail. But what we are going to look at is a few of the important ones that we've already talked about, already mentioned. So the crucial building blocks in order for you to understand and pivot and change your business if necessary and communicate it are firstly customer segments, or who do you help, or markets. And we can talk here about different kinds of markets: mass markets, segmented markets, resegmented markets. Like iPad, for instance, resegmented a market because it didn't exist until the product existed, and then everybody wanted one. Multi-sided platforms like Google and Facebook, and we'll look at how Facebook works in a moment. And then you can also consider niche markets. So, for instance, GoPro is a video camera, but it's niched at sporty outdoor types because of its small size and lightweight. And that worked very well for them. Now, a lot of people in the past, a lot of business advisors and marketeers have often told us that we need to niche on demographics, create an avatar of your ideal customer based on gender and age and all the rest of it. And that's all very well, but you need to be careful because this particular demographic, for instance, will give us King Charles, excellent, but also Ozzy Osbourne. And I shouldn't think there's an awful lot of overlap in terms of products that we might want to market to them. You never know, though. So beware of purely demographic segmentation. Try to think instead of your markets as a group of people who need to do something or need to achieve something. And that something is described as in a value proposition, or how do you help them, or sometimes benefits and solutions, but not features. The value propositions are often, they're different from activities. People don't pay you for what you do, they pay you for the results of what you do. If you're a cleaner, or if you have a cleaner, you don't pay him or her to clean, you pay them to have a clean house and for you not to have to have done it. That's your value proposition. They're often difficult to identify and describe because they're often intangible end states or experiences, but they're always the result of your key activities done on your key resources. That quite often come down to alleviating pain points such as cost, risk, time, or even embarrassment. If you remember the old Colgate adverts where the ring of confidence was about the embarrassment of having bad breath, or to provide some gains for people. This can be more money, more time, or status. People, for instance, don't buy a Rolls Royce just to get from A to B. They buy a Rolls Royce to get from A to B and be seen doing it in a really expensive car. It's about status rather than purely transport. A recent real example I had on one of my workshops, and I thought was an excellent example of an intangible value proposition. He was an application developer, but as a side hustle, he was also a photographer. And his value proposition wasn't anything to do with photos. He said he wanted families to be able to relive precious moments. And that was, I thought, was an excellent value proposition because it speaks to the heart, and it's why you want these photos, not the fact that you want photos. Okay, channels is the next most important one, I think, on the right-hand side. And this is how your value proposition connects to your customers. So we can think of this in 5 main areas. Awareness, how do people know about you? How do they become aware of you? How do they evaluate what you have to offer and compare against similar offerings from competitors? How do they buy from you? Is it just stores? Is it online? Is it hybrid? How do you deliver? Is it in person, or is it transactional via delivery service? and what kind of relationship do you intend to have with them afterwards? Fully automated, dedicated personal service, some kind of hybrid, whatever. But channels are how you connect to your customers to your value proposition. So we haven't got time to go through all the other blocks, but you get the idea that you need to think about each block, and then you can basically stick a large canvas on the wall and get you and your team to stick sticky notes on with your value proposition, your customer segments, how you gain your revenue and what have you, so you can brainstorm and ideate around your business, but also allow you to communicate it simply. So we'll look at now some examples. You may recognize some of the following companies. I'm sure you've all heard of the Haloid Company of Rochester, New York, or possibly not. But in 1959, they invented this bad boy, which they were convinced was going to revolutionize the way that companies and organizations share information. And that, in fact, came to pass. But so basically, this is a photocopier. It allows you to copy a document very quickly and easily. But they didn't know anything about selling these kind of machines, so they went to IBM, International Business Machines, who better, and they conducted some market research, and the results came back, and basically it was disastrous. Nobody wanted one. These machines cost $10,000 at the time, over $100,000 in today's money. They weighed 300 kilograms, still 300 kilograms in today's money, and took up the size of a small office. And basically nobody wanted to spend that amount of money to do something that they've been able to get by without doing up until now. But the people at Haloid were convinced that they had something here. So let's look at how we can explain what happened in terms of the business model canvas. It wasn't around at the time, but we can use it now. They had a value proposition that was easy document reproduction with vastly increased efficiency. Because of the size and the cost of it, though, they were looking at corporations and large organizations, and they proposed to get their revenue from product sales. The problem is that nobody wanted to buy this product. And the key thing there is buy, because the people at Haloid then had a bit of a brainwave, and they went away and they thought, okay, well, rather than ask people to spend all that money buying this machine, we'll ask them to rent it at a nominal rent, and then ask them to pay for the copies that they make. And of course, this was a much better value proposition for businesses, because they didn't have to fork out large amounts of money. And once they had these machines, they immediately saw the value of being able to copy documents very quickly. It's hard to imagine now that before photocopiers, you had to send a document to the printer or get it photographed and send it off to be developed. So what happened now was that people started copying. They started making copies. They made lots and lots of copies. And to cut a long story short, a decade later, the company, now renamed Xerox, had sales of $10 billion a year. Same product, just a different revenue model. And it completely changed the face of the company. They invented an entire industry, and what you know when you've made it, because your company name becomes a verb. A similar, more recent story is Nespresso, who, when they invented these fantastic coffee machines, couldn't sell them because they were just too expensive. By the time that you'd taken into account the very expensive manufacturing costs and the profit margin, nobody wanted to buy them. But they changed the model and sold the machines basically at cost or even at a loss, and then patented the pod technology for the coffee and started charging people a lot of money for what is basically a cup of coffee. But people liked it, and again, are now a multi-billion-dollar company, same product, different business model. A different kind of model completely is a big company like Facebook. This is called a multi-platform business model because it involves two or more, in the case of Facebook, two very distinct customer segments, consumers and businesses, and for whom they offer very different value propositions. For consumers, it's all about sharing and belonging and showing people what your dinner's going to look like and all important stuff like that. And for businesses, it's about attracting attention and basically selling stuff. It's an entirely web-based platform. It's an entirely automated customer relationship. You couldn't speak to someone at Facebook even if you wanted to. But what's really interesting is when you come down to revenue streams and key resources, because of course, as consumers, we pay nothing to use Facebook. It's free, but that doesn't mean that Facebook don't get anything. They get data. They get lots and lots and lots of data, and that's important because the other customer segment, businesses, they want to attract attention and they pay lots of money for placement fees, and they want to be able to place their attention-seeking material in front of a very specific market, and that data allows them to be that specific in their segmentation of Facebook users. If it wasn't for the billions of free users, then businesses wouldn't be interested in Facebook or any other platform model like Uber, like Airbnb, Craigslist, Google, all work on very similar ways. Key resources. Now, when we in workshops ask people what the key resource of Facebook is, a lot of people say that the people, the technicians, and everything, but it's not really the case. Key resource is what makes you, or what makes your business your business. And the key resource of Facebook is not the people who work there. We could sack 500 of them tomorrow and nobody would know. It's the platform, and so their key activity is to maintain and protect that platform. And so their biggest cost is going to be the salary of those people and the infrastructure that supports them. So you can see here that even a very large and what is quite a complex industry can be explained very simply using only 8 of the 9 building blocks here. We don't generally talk about key partners for Facebook because they just acquire them and put them out of business. So those are big companies, but what about Emma? Well, she didn't give up on her idea about becoming a dog walker. Instead, she came on a workshop where she learned how to use the business model canvas to ideate and innovate and communicate to a business. And along with the rest of the group, she worked hard to come up with a business model that allowed her to continue with her idea. And at the end of the workshop, she presented her workshop to the group. And it turned out to be, although this looked very simple, don't be fooled. It takes a lot of work to make things this simple. But hi, I'm Emma. I'm a dog walker, and I walk and look after dogs for busy working dog owners. I use my love of the outdoors and my expertise with dogs to bring them peace of mind and happy, healthy dogs. So there's the basis of your business to start with in 5 of those blocks. You can then continue though that I make myself known through these channels, and I deliver obviously face to face. I have lots of people that help me. I have some costs, the biggest of which by far is my van, and I intend to charge per dog, per hour, per walk, whatever. She presented this to the group, and the great thing about doing group workshops is that you get what Richard Mulholland calls the clarity of the uninvolved. They take everything she says at face value and start to ask some questions and to provide some feedback. So it starts off with, well, okay, you say you're good with dogs, but how do we know? And someone else said, yeah, but have you thought about maybe changing your revenue model? So instead of charging per walk per dog, try to get something a little more stable and charge per month for a set number of walks or on retainer or whatever. And someone else said, yeah, but you've been a dog owner for a while, so you obviously must know local pet shops. Why don't you do some merchandising with them so you can sell leads and chews and toys and treats, or maybe even deliver supplies along to the owners along with their dogs when you take them back. And someone else said, oh, yeah. Well, what about with local dog groomers? Why don't you do some joint marketing with them? Or maybe even do a joint program where you take the dogs for a walk, let them run through the mud and what have you, and then you take them to the groomers, and by the time you deliver them home, they're all nice and fluffy and smelling nice and looking fantastic. And suddenly Emma had confidence. She had confidence that she could run a business. She knew what she was doing. She didn't get bogged down in details about things that she didn't understand. And she was able to communicate her business very simply to other people when she met them. It's a very simple elevator pitch using just the first few blocks of the canvas. And if ever she did need to use or create a business plan, then she's now answered some of the questions that actually appeared on that business plan I showed you earlier. But without getting bogged down in stuff that's really not important at this stage. So how else can we use the business model canvas? Well, apart from describing and communicating your business, you are now able to use it because it's a single page and it's a common language that lots of people can understand and learn very quickly. You can involve lots more people in doing some ideation, or as Alex Osterwalder calls it, innovation. around the canvas. So all businesses have a value proposition and a customer segment, at least one of each. But then you can start to ask some questions. Like, what if if other people could benefit, other customers could benefit from what we currently do? Or what if we could provide more value so that this customer would love us even more, pay us even more, or be less likely to go somewhere else? Or we could reverse it and say, okay, who else might benefit from what we already do? Or we could say, we've got some fantastic key resources. Who else could use these key resources? And a fantastic example of this is a large online retailer, very successful, who in the course of building a very large online retail business, created an amazing IT infrastructure. And someone said, I wonder if anyone else could use this infrastructure. And it turns out that basically everyone can. Now, I can't tell you I'm from an IT background, I can't tell you the amount of time I have spent sat in freezing cold server rooms with my fleece and my hat on, building hardware, upgrading software and upgrading operating systems that cost hundreds of thousands of pounds. Nobody needs to do that anymore. They just rent computing power from AWS. They only pay for what they need. And when they don't need it anymore, they just downscale and it costs them nothing. Genius. One of the most common questions you get around businesses is how can we increase our income, or how can we expand our business? And of course, the obvious block to start with here is revenue streams. You can tinker with prices, you can raise or reduce prices, but you don't really want to get into a race to the bottom by reducing prices just to sell more. And you can reduce costs, of course. But you can now also talk about revenue models, membership subscriptions. Remember Xerox? I, for instance, use software, Snagit and Camtasia, which I bought in a one-off payment, but I pay every year, £45, I think it is a year, and that gets me upgrades every year and support. So it's a kind of hybrid model. It gets ongoing income for TechSmith, but also they get transaction income as well. Now, we've already looked at how you might modify or add a new value proposition or customer segment, but it could be that actually you could sell a lot more just by going through different channels. For instance, if you only sell through shops at the moment, could you add online? If you only do face-to-face training at the moment, could you deliver some asynchronous online training, some online courses? Or could you use social media, whereas at the moment you don't? You can also look at the other side. Could we outsource some of our key activities to reduce costs or to increase value? Could we collaborate with new partners to give us some more key activities or provide us with some more key resources that we don't have? Or could we just acquire some new key resources, plant and machinery to make our production process cheaper, quicker, more efficient, whatever it is? You can see, but what you can do here is that you can see that wherever you want to ideate, whichever block you want to look at, you can see how it might affect other blocks. And you can see here that if we want to increase our income, we could actually address virtually any of the blocks in order to test ideas about how to do that. The main thing is, though, you can see them all on a single page. Business Model Canvas also allows you to pivot when you need to. So if you'd produced your 20-page business plan in the beginning of March in 2020, little did you know that it was about to get completely blown out of the water. Every assumption, every financial projection, every means of communication was about to get blown out of the water because, of course, within a couple of weeks, the streets were empty and everyone was locked at home. The customers were still there, but you couldn't reach them. In Business Model Canvas terms, you'd lost your channel, one of your main channels. Some companies were very lucky. Zoom, for instance, and Amazon did very well because they weren't operating in face-to-face. The very opposite. But a lot of other businesses had to pivot very quickly around the fact that they couldn't operate in any face-to-face environments. So how do you learn more about how to do this and how to use it? Well, of course, you can read the books. There's another book by the same author. In fact, there are two other books by the same author. One of them is Value Proposition Design, which is a whole book just on creating a great value proposition. And there's a separate canvas for that too. And that's all available on the Strategyzer website. This is Alex Osterwalder's company. And there's also some great online courses there as well. There's the Business Model U. So one of the editors of the original book with Alex Osterwalder adapted the technique and the logic and the canvas to work with individuals and there's a separate website for that as well. There's a new version of that book just come out. I'm actually one of the featured case studies in that book, and this introduced us to a new canvas, the work model canvas, which asks us to think about individuals in the workplace as mini businesses, and asked people to think in a more entrepreneurial way about what they do and who they help and who helps them, how they get known, and what they get for it and what it costs them. There's also business models for teams, which allows you to use the same logic for a team canvas. So you can see you can operate at lots of different levels within an organization. In each case, the methodology is the same. You start off with what do we currently have in order to visualize and communicate your current situation. You then reflect on it and identify pain points, opportunities, assumptions, what have you, and then you revise it and you ask lots of what if questions. And now what? And then you can test what it is that you do by changing one or more blocks at a time. And this allows you to do enterprise-wide communication because the logic is exactly the same. The language is largely the same, and it allows you to have communication from top to bottom and across an organization, which is based on the simplicity of a single page common language tool. There's an old saying that goes, you can't read the label from inside the jar. And this is where the value of doing live in-person or remote workshops comes. You can spend a long time reading books and going on and doing online courses. But when you come to present your canvas to other people, you'll be blown away by what you get back from a perspective that you can't possibly get from on your own. It happened to me when I worked with Tim Clark on my certification program. I spent ages doing my canvas, and within seconds someone said, yeah, but what about this? And something that I just never even thought of. And I see it every day when I do my own workshops. I'm amazed at some of the great ideas that come from the rest of the group. So if you're sick of all this and you think there's got to be a better way, well, there probably is. Then get visual, at least to start with, and try to get your idea on a canvas and work with other people to do it. So why exactly? Just to reiterate, it's a common language. It provides simplicity and clarity, which gives you engagement and shows you alignment and relationships between the various components of your business and allows you to communicate it very simply. In other words, you are democratizing your strategy and innovation for your entire business, for also non-commercial organizations, but also units within the business, teams and individuals. And a lot of companies use it for product launches. So they treat a new product or a revised product as an entirely new business and ask themselves, okay, who is this product going to help? How is it going to help them? How are we going to get our money? What is it going to cost us to do it? And is it going to work? And they can involve people from lots of different departments and lots of different units, to do that. So you escape the silo mentality that you often get. It's a great tool for innovation and collaboration, brainstorming and marketing, developing your marketing material. And it's also a brilliant tool for induction and onboarding. Imagine if everyone in your organization on day one was taught how to use this tool, and then they could communicate up, down and across the business straight away, giving ideas and being able to understand communications from the top. People like us, I use it every day, and it's a tool to be used every day. It's not a one-off thing that you do and then forget. It's something you use all the time in order to change and progress businesses and organizations. Now, we talked about how it's useful in lots of situations, and it is indeed, but in order for it to be useful, you have to be able to identify a valid value proposition. And so there's at least one area where it's not useful, and so we don't use it for politics. So, do we need a detailed business plan? To come back to our original question, the answer is, of course, it depends. If you are needing to get finance for your business, you may need something more than a canvas with some sticky notes on it. If you want to get past the dragons, or if you want to not have Claude look at you like this in the latter stages of The Apprentice, you may need something more. But ask yourself this question: if you were starting to devise your pitch for the dragons, or starting to think about your business for The Apprentice, or starting to think about your loan application, would you start with a detailed business plan? And ask yourself this question also: if you're trying to communicate your new business idea or a change to your existing business to the rest of your organization, would you start by emailing them a 20-page business plan? Probably not. Most people wouldn't read it. A lot of them wouldn't understand it, and they probably wouldn't, and they certainly wouldn't appreciate it. So it's maybe a good idea to start off with something more visual and more inclusive to start with, and then work on the details as and when you need to. Okay, thanks very much. I hope that's given you some food for thought, and thanks for your time, and back to Mark.
Brilliant, fantastic. We're bang on schedule, so we've got to about 10 minutes left. So we did say we're going to finish by 1 o'clock, and so this part I'm going to go through how you can work with us. So the whole idea of this is to present what we think is a great idea with regards to a business plan and then linking in motivation. But we also think that there's opportunities where we can provide the opportunity to use that. And as Phil has mentioned, the group setup is very powerful. So we need to bring people together to allow that to happen. So let me just go through what we've come up with then, how you could work with us in 2023. So what we thought was we need to help you to create your one-page business plan. We need to help you get clear on your value proposition. We need to help you understand why you are different to those that do something similar. We need to provide some cohort support and feedback. And we want to allow you to support others, because I think sometimes we forget the value that we bring, and also helping others is a human trait, which is often not we don't pay enough attention to. So we have created a motivated business innovation program. It's something that we come at quite quickly, and so there might be a different name for it next time we do this. But essentially what we are offering is 3 2-hour online workshops to work on your visual plan, a motivational map and debrief with myself, which is normally in itself £149, group sessions with a maximum of 8 people, that is, so that it's all quite intimate and we're not going to get masses of people and you get lost in the crowd, as it were. So we've decided 8 is the maximum we can do on our first cohort. We'll offer a WhatsApp group so you can communicate and keep in touch with us in between the 3 sessions. And we're also offering you, if you want to sign up quickly, Phil and I will offer a one-to-one coaching session with each of us as a quick decision bonus if you want to take advantage of what we're offering before the end of November. So what it is that we're offering, what's the investment? Essentially what we're offering is a one-off payment of $295 of those for all those things that I've mentioned, or if you'd prefer to split it up into 3 monthly payments, that would be 3 payments of £99. So we've kept it nice and simple and straightforward. And so if you are interested, then we will be sending out an email for all those that registered with all the details where you can book a session or a quick 20-minute session with me or Phil, where you can talk about some things. And then if you're still up for it, then we'll let you give you the link to pay and basically get your place booked in for that that offer. So there we are. That was a quick run through of the offer. Phil, anything to add from what I ran through there quickly on the offer that we're putting out there?
No, I think you've covered most of it there.
Yeah, it's true to say that this is the first time we've done this, so we've almost made it a no-brainer offer, because if you think about the value that we're offering, 3 sessions, one-to-ones with us that are available, the motivational map session and all those sort of things, should be an awful lot more than what we're offering. But I think $295, if you are looking to get more clearer on what your actual business is all about, and so you have that, that visual plan, which, as we've explained, will be a lot easier to update and adapt as time goes by, then I think we're offering something that is high value, and hopefully will have get your interest. So I think that's pretty much it. Question-wise, I'm not seeing any questions in the Zoom meeting. Yeah, the offer, Marina, as I've mentioned, that it will be in an email to follow up with this. So there'll be a link to speak to us to allow that to happen. I saw your message, your chat message, sharing about your motivational maps, which you've done a while ago. First thing I'll say about that is your motivation may well have changed, but I will be able to probably dig out your map. So if you wanted me to send that to you, then just get in touch and I'll send it on to you. And apart from that, I don't have any other questions. So that's either that we've covered absolutely everything, or people just haven't thought about it just yet. But if you're watching this on the replay, then everything still counts, obviously. You can get in touch with us. You can put comments in and we'll see them on the YouTube link and we'll follow up. And also, if you are registered, you will get the follow-up emails, which will allow you to book in with myself or Phil for a quick check-in with any other details before you commit to join the group. Okay, so I think that's about it. We are just a little bit ahead of schedule. We did say that we will finish by 1 p.m, so that's what we're doing. Thank you for those that joined us, wherever you are in the world, wherever you are, whether you're in the Zoom meeting or on the YouTube link. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully you are seeing that it's a great deal and that you'd want to come and join us. And we're kicking off, I didn't mention the date actually, it's starting on the 10th of January. That's Tuesday the 10th of January, and we're going to do a 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. slot, and then we'll do them every week after that. That's that. Great. Thank you, Phil, for your time. Great presentation. So for that, we will close off everything and we will see you all soon.